I'm happy to welcome you to our colloquium dedicated to the 80th anniversary of the tragedy in Babyn Yar. I suggest that we start by commemorating, honoring the memory of the victims of Babyn Yar with a minute of silence. Thank you all for joining us. I would like to thank our international friends and the audience who have joined us from Ukraine and abroad. Primarily, I'd like to thank the Ukrainian Ministry for Education and Science, for supporting the burden of memory, our project, our joint project with France and Ukraine on research of the Holocaust. Our event today is part of this project. I would also like to thank our French partners of the National Institute for Eastern Scholarship and Civilization, and also our partners in Canada, the Canadian NGO Ukrainian Jewish Encounter, who have agreed to support our project today and our event. And I also would like to thank the Network of Memory Network Marza Pamięci project, which is commemorating the memory of the murdered Jews of Europe. Among other organizers is the Kyiv Mohyla Academy, the Ukrainian Catholic University, the German Ukrainian Historians Commission, the Austrian Ukrainian Commission, Historical Commission, Duhi Litera Publishing, and Ukraina Moderna, the international intellectual periodical. I would like to start our colloquium by giving the floor to co-director of the Ukrainian German Historians Commission, professor of the Ukrainian Catholic University, director of the Jewish Studies and renowned Ukrainian historian, Professor Yaroslav Hrytsak. Thank you. Dear colleagues, dear friends, I welcome you at this conference. The Holocaust is perhaps the most tragic event in world history, and also the most well studied in historiography, at least as István Deák says. If you lined up all the books on the Holocaust, you probably circle the equator. The problem is that Ukraine was very little present in these books, and there were very few Ukrainian historians. I'm very happy that, in the 30 years of independence, we finally have a generation of young people researching Holocaust. They see this as a review, as a survey of our ranks, which is very promising. I hope that our work is fruitful, and I hope this is just the start, because this conference is an attempt to institutionalize this milieu. Of course, we'll discuss this at the end, but so far, I'm very grateful for your initiative, and I expect a very interesting, fruitful conversation. Thank you, Yaroslav, and I give the floor now to the Ukrainian Jewish Encounter Communications Director, Ms. Natalia Feduszczak. And hello, everyone. Good evening. On behalf of the Ukrainian Jewish Encounter, I would like to welcome everybody to this very important conference. Our organization was founded in 2008 to deepen the understanding and the challenges and the diversity of Ukrainian Jewish relations over the centuries and into the future. And conferences such as this one provide us with the opportunity for scholars and ordinary people with an interest in Ukrainian Jewish relations, the opportunity to hear each other, to learn from each other, and develop a new Ukraine and establish connections between countries relevant to these discussions. I hope your work is fruitful, and I am eagerly looking forward to this discussion. Thank you, Natalia, for these wonderful wishes. And from our partners of the Kyiv Mohyla Academy, I give the floor to Professor Konstantin Sihov. co-director, editor-in-chief of the Duhi Litera periodical. Professor Sigov, the floor is yours. Thank you. I would like to welcome all of the participants of our conference, the audience. It is very meaningful to us that this colloquium embodies the main kind of criteria of our broader French-Ukrainian project, the burden of memory on the Holocaust in Ukraine. It's cross studies between Ukraine and the Western world. This encounter that we're having at the conference today of various scholars and with an established international reputation, and also young scholars who have the chance, the opportunity to present their research at this highest forum. We know well that the dialogue in these matters has been missing over the past decades. It's no secret that the inertia of Soviet anti-Semitism put brakes on Holocaust studies, not just in the Soviet Union and Kiev and Ukraine, but also this oblivion of the Holocaust was part of official state policy. So the anti-Semitism of institutions, universities, has left a bad inertia after itself. And so the institutions that we now have in independent Ukraine, such as the Ukrainian Catholic University or the Kiev Mohyla Academy, it is now up to them to develop this research on an international level and attracting both talented young Ukrainian researchers and international scholars. I remember in Paris, we had a conversation with Patrice Dubois, and he said that the Ukrainian translation of his book is the most important in the world for him. Yes, there is a German translation, there's English, but the reception in Ukraine of a study of this kind, Holocaust by bullets, it was extremely important to him how Ukrainians will respond to this. This book Kashtrova's book has also been translated into Duhi Litera, and we also think that the Ukrainian reception of the book will be very important. I think an important sign of growth, of overcoming this official state anti-Semitism and this oblivion, is the fact that our colloquium is being co-organized both by universities and central executive body, the State Service for Ethnic Policy and freedom of religion. They have published the link to our translation on their website. I'm very happy that we can transcend these signs, this confusion. I was recently reading this book, Shoah in Ukraine, this collection, and Dita Pol, who's with us today, mentions in it that the number of Jews who died in the years of the Second World War in Ukraine, unlike most other occupied territories, it's very difficult to establish the exact numbers. And so studies like this, these kind of meticulous, detailed studies, are a very extremely important reminder to us of those events that started in Kiev on this day 80 years ago, when the Jews of the city of Kiev were ordered to go to Babyn Yar. I would like to thank everybody involved in organizing this conference, and we're prepared to listen and comment. Thank you, Konstantin. And among us, our co-organizers and partners of this conference, we also have the Center for the Study of East European Jewry of the Kiev Mohyla Academy. I give the floor to the director of this center, Mr. Leonid Finberg. Leonid, the floor is yours. Thank you. I would also like to welcome all of the participants of the conference, and I'm happy that it's occurring and that it's so representative. I'm happy to see several employees of our center as participants. We started Like most analogous structures, we started with enthusiasts, we started with amateurs, and now we have professionals who are preparing dissertations, their dissertations on these subjects. In spite of all of our successes, though, I'd like to mention, it's no secret that in our reconsideration of the Holocaust and the tragedy of the Babyn Yar in particular, seeing as we're marking the 80th anniversary of this tragedy, we are taking only the first steps in this process. Yaroslav has mentioned that books on the history of the Holocaust are numerous. I know that we're talking about 30,000 different publications, different books, but I think that in Ukrainian there's no more than about 100. And if you select the truly scholarly ones, it's probably far less than that. Considering this, we as center also, one of the things we do is we also publish books on the Holocaust, and we about 20 such books over the years. But if the first books, whereas the first books we published were more introductory, now we published some of the deepest studies and contributions to understanding of the time, if these events can be understood. I'm holding in my hands now a book by Doris Bergen, War and Genocide, A Brief History of the Holocaust, that just came out in our editing house. And I heartily encourage everyone who hasn't yet read this book to read it, because the main point of the book is that understanding the Holocaust is not something we've seen over the past few years. This has been the empiricism of the Holocaust, the empirics of the Holocaust, the consideration of particular events, but thinking of the Holocaust as a disease of the civilization is only ahead of us. And this is one of the first books to talk about this. I think that over the next few months, we will publish the book by Zbigniew Bauman, Modernity and the Holocaust. I think that's one of the deepest books dedicated to the phenomenon. And as Konstantin Sichov has already said, he mentioned the book by Kai Struve. I think that it should be in shops. It should be available both in shops and in the centers who study the Holocaust. The Ukrainian, German government, Ukrainian nationalism, violence against Jews. The point is that there is a profound study of the tragedy, a scholarly study. A particular challenge is popularizing or bringing this information to the public. Unfortunately, in Kyiv, the sociological studies show that about half of the residents of Kyiv don't know about the tragedy of Babyn Yar. So that's where we are today. Anyway, I won't continue this sad story, but yes, we all know that things have been forgotten for a long time, but I would like to wish every success to the participants of this conference. I'm happy that it's taking place and delighted to join. Myself and the institution that I represent are delighted to join with our contribution in our books.